On the morning of November 8, 1965, the air inside a lavish New York City townhouse was thick with a manufactured silence. On the third floor, sprawled across a bed she never slept in, lay Dorothy Kilgallen. She was one of the most famous journalists in America, a woman whose syndicated column reached millions. Now, she was a cold, rigid puzzle piece in a locked-room mystery that felt entirely staged. The initial visual assessment of the scene screamed of theatricality. She was found fully clothed in a peignoir, sitting up against the pillows, a book resting unnaturally on her lap. Her reading glasses were positioned perfectly, yet they were upside down. The bedside lamp was still on, casting long shadows across a room that belonged to a woman who famously required absolute darkness to sleep. The official NYC police report documented the physical state of the room with a chilling lack of curiosity. The responding officers noted the unnatural posture, the heavy makeup still applied to her face, and the hairpiece she had not removed. Yet instead of securing the premises as a potential crime scene, they allowed the space to be contaminated. The forensic inconsistencies began piling up before the body was even moved. Within hours, the narrative was cemented by the authorities. The medical examiner ruled the death an accident, attributing it to a fatal combination of alcohol and sedatives. The case was neatly categorized as a tragic, self-inflicted overdose by a stressed, overworked celebrity. No homicide detectives were dispatched. No fingerprints were dusted. The official machinery moved with terrifying speed to close the file on a woman who made her living exposing secrets. But the chemistry inside the victim told a different, darker story. Toxicology results revealed a lethal barbiturate cocktail in her bloodstream, specifically a combination of seconal and tuinal. The sheer volume of the drugs was staggering, enough to incapacitate a person almost instantly. Yet the empty glass on the nightstand contained only a faint residue. The physical mechanics of her ingesting that massive dose, then neatly arranging herself to read, defied basic pharmacology. Those who knew the journalist understood that this chemical profile did not match her reality. She was meticulous, driven, and highly functional, not a reckless consumer of narcotics. She had a prescription for seconal, but the tuinal was entirely foreign to her medical history. Someone else had introduced that secondary fatal depressant into her system. The psychological profile of the victim directly contradicted the careless suicide or accidental overdose theory. The most damning piece of the puzzle was not what was found on that bed, but what was missing from the room. The true red thread of this investigation was a thick, explosive file folder she had been carrying for months. It contained her handwritten notes, exclusive interviews, and confidential documents. When the police cleared the room, that specific, highly sensitive dossier had completely vanished from the townhouse. The disappearance of this evidence was inextricably linked to the most dangerous story of her career. For 2 years, she had been relentlessly investigating the JFK assassination, utilizing her vast network of sources to bypass the official Warren Commission narrative. She had publicly stated that she was about to blow the case wide open. The missing file was the culmination of that dangerous pursuit. Her investigative reach had granted her unprecedented access to the darkest corners of the assassination plot. She was the only reporter to secure a private, unmonitored interview with Jack Ruby during his trial in Dallas. Whatever Ruby whispered to her in that isolated room was recorded in the very notes that went missing on the night she died. She had crossed an invisible line, holding secrets that powerful entities desperately wanted buried. In the weeks leading up to November 1965, the atmosphere around her had grown suffocatingly tense. She confided in close friends that she was being followed, that her phone lines were tapped, and that her life was in imminent danger. This was not the paranoia of an overworked columnist. It was the calculated, escalating intimidation of a reporter who was actively threatening a high-profile political cover-up. Despite these documented fears, the subsequent investigation willfully ignored the context of her life. The missing notes were never cataloged as stolen property. The police never questioned her enemies, nor did they investigate the sudden absence of the explosive JFK dossier. The authorities treated the empty space where the evidence should have been as if it meant nothing, actively participating in the erasure of her final, most crucial work. Because the death was ruled an accidental overdose, the legal threshold for a criminal investigation was never met. The coroner signed off on the certificate, effectively acting as a shield against further inquiry. Subpoenas were never issued for the phone records from that night. The legal system functioned exactly as it was designed to in this instance, sealing the vault on a suspicious death before the public could ask questions. Decades later, a re-examination of the physical layout of the townhouse revealed another glaring anomaly. The room where she was found was situated on a floor she rarely used, equipped with an air conditioning unit that was running full blast in the freezing November air. The doors were locked from the inside. It was a classic locked room scenario designed to project the illusion of isolation and self-inflicted harm. But the timeline of the barbiturate cocktail absorption shatters that locked room illusion. Forensic toxicologists reviewing the cold case noted that the rapid onset of the tuinol would have caused severe ataxia, a total loss of muscle control. She could not have swallowed that massive dose, walked to the bed, propped herself up, put on her glasses upside down, and opened a book. The physiological reality proves the scene was meticulously arranged. This forensic impossibility leaves only one terrifying conclusion. Someone else was in that freezing, brightly lit room on the third floor. Someone who understood her habits just enough to stage a reading session, but not enough to know she never slept in that bed or wore her glasses in that manner. The killer orchestrated a tableau of normalcy to mask a quiet chemical execution. The identity of the phantom in the room might have been easily uncovered if the police had followed the most basic investigative protocols. Witnesses placed the journalist at the Regency Hotel lounge just hours before her death, deeply engaged in conversation with a man known only to her inner circle as the out-of-towner. He was the last person seen with her while she was alive. This mysterious companion vanished into the night as soon as the news of her death broke. A thorough investigation would have immediately detained this individual for questioning, profiling his movements and his relationship to the victim. Instead, the police never formally identified him, never brought him in for an interview, and allowed the most critical person of interest to simply walk away from a highly suspicious timeline. The failure to track the out-of-towner mirrors the failure to locate the missing JFK dossier. Both disappearances were vital components of a broader, systemic blindness. The investigation missed the evidence because acknowledging the evidence would have required acknowledging the murder.
The high-profile political ramifications of her death demanded a swift, unquestioned resolution regardless of the obvious staging at the crime scene. When we look back at the cold files today, the autopsy report stands as a monument to forensic negligence. The unabsorbed powder in the glass, the secondary drug never prescribed to the victim, the physiological impossibility of her final posture. Every scientific metric points away from an accident and directly toward a calculated fatal intervention. The physical evidence screamed homicide, but the official ink wrote suicide. The true horror of this case is not just the loss of a brilliant investigative mind, but the chilling efficiency with which her life's work was erased. The perpetrators did not just silence a voice, they stole the truth she was about to publish. The quiet, locked room was a temporary stage for a permanent cover-up, executed with a precision that speaks to deep institutional power. The Dorothy Kilgallen investigation remains a masterclass in how a system purposely missed the evidence while staring right at it. The missing dossier, the unnatural crime scene, the lethal cocktail of unprescribed drugs. These are the red threads that were deliberately cut and discarded. Until those threads are finally pulled together, her death will stand as one of the most successful, unpunished assassinations in modern American history.